Okay, hello everybody and welcome to this Meet the Author session. Today we will cover how to troubleshoot network problems with Beamy. My name is Hilda Arteaga. I am a community manager of the Cisco community and the host of today's event. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today. We just started this program a few months ago and we are very glad that you are joining us today. And I would like to thank Vinit and welcome him to this session because we are very excited to collaborate with you again since you have been such a strong pillar for this community.
Thanks, Hilda.
Okay, so before we start, I would like to let you know that in this session, this Cisco Press author, Technical Leader Vinit Jain, will talk about the best practices and approaches to troubleshoot network problems, including the complex ones. Along the session, Vinit will share more details and key details about his book Troubleshooting BPG and the relevance to solve BPG-related issues. In addition, Vinit will talk more about all the new material that he's preparing with Cisco Press, so you can have an idea of what's happening. So for today's event, we will start by meeting more about Vinit. So we'll be asking some questions to get to know more about you, Vinit, and your story and everything that has been driving you to the place you are right now. Then we will have a look to the key contents of the Troubleshooting BPG book. And at the end, we will have some time to clarify all the questions that you will be sharing through the Q&A panel or the chat panel. So before we start, I just would like to take a small moment just to congratulate the new Cisco Designated VIP Plus of 2020. Those are the top contributors from the Cisco community. They help a lot of people around the world, so congratulations. And if you want to know who they are, you just can have a look. We will place the link for that on the chat, so you can double check it out. And well, also I would like to let you know that on this session we have a surprise for you. You will be able to win a free signed copy of Vinit's book. That's true, I have it in my hand, so you can see it here, and it's signed by Vinit. So you will get it on your house. And there's something important I would like to mention here. You must be a community member to get that prize. So if you win this giveaway or the raffle, but you're not a community member, we won't be able to give you that prize. So just please keep that in mind, and we will tell the winners before the session finishes. So well, just let's get started. So thank you so much, Vin, once again for being with us today. The truth is that your career is so long, and there are many things that we could chat with you for hours and hours. But before anything else, the first question would be how you got into tech? How you decided to do a career in technology? How you ended up being here?
Being here in Cisco, it's a long story. It's been 10 years, 10 and a half years now with Cisco. So it's been a fun ride. But starting in tech, it all started around, I believe, 2006. 2005, 2006, and I didn't begin my career as a network engineer. I began actually as a software engineer, and it all started by reading a newspaper article which talked about some group of hackers which made a massive impact and caused an outage to one of the networks, and that's where my curiosity for computers started. And before that, I haven't even touched computers. So it was all of a sudden I was doing my graduation in mathematics, and all of a sudden I was like, no, I also need to learn computers. And it was more of a side hobby that I was planning to, but during the summer break that we get back in India, I was I had nothing to do. My semester was over, and I thought, let's start learning some stuff. And while learning, I got too curious, and I started spending a lot of time. There were days I wouldn't just get up from my seat and just keep doing, writing code, learning stuff, all about computers and programming. And but over the period of time, I learned about programming databases. I even, there was a point when I was into kernel programming, shell programming, and then I moved into freelancing work, where I was developing software applications for various companies back in India. There was this one night when I was working on a project for a call center, and they wanted me to develop an application to scrub the data they have for their phone calls. And that's when I started learning about, getting to know about the Cisco devices. Back in the days, it was 6500 switch, which they were using to manage their network and the voice gateways. All those things kind of made me curious, and that eventually led me to learn about networks. Before that, it was nothing related to networks. So it's fun and weird at the same time as how I actually moved from programming to databases to shell programming to networks. It's been, I mean, I couldn't even imagine like 12 years, 13 years ago that I would be doing what I do today.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vinit. Sometimes we ask the experts that if that was a passion, if that was your major, if that was a special opportunity. But in your case, it has been so many factors that have led you to this career. So in the past, like, you started as a CCIE trainer and network consultant. So how would you describe this experience?
Well, I started off as a network consultant. It was a very small company where I was working, and I wasn't just a consultant. I was doing kind of two roles. So I was working on setting up networks for and setting up ISDNs, local LAN environments, configuring routers, switches, and at the same time I was driving the software development team in that company because I had background. I came from the programming background, development background. So I was driving both at the same time, and I worked there for quite some time, and then I moved into corporate training. Before that, I mean, before I could complete my tenure at that first company where I did my network consultancy job, I started preparing for CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, so all the way, I mean, it took me like pretty much 1.5, 2 years to complete my CCIE journey from CCNA to CCIE, and I was very rigorous in learning stuff. So the job opportunities or the projects that I got during my first company was really helping me because that's what the basic route switch stuff was. So it's been a good experience, and once I became CCIE and I moved to the corporate training or CCIE training area, it was fun as well. I mean, you wouldn't believe I got a job opportunity to work in Cisco the first time when I was working as a trainer, and I said no to that opportunity. And I know how stupid of me, but it was me. I was enjoying what I did. And 3 months later, I got the same opportunity again. And there was a recession going on back in the days. So I said, okay, let's give it a shot, see what happens. I was still doing well being a CCI trainer, but I guess destiny had something else for me. So said yes, and I had a pretty rigorous interview for like 6 hours. Like in a couple of weeks, I got finalized and joined Cisco HTTS, High Touch Technical Services. So, there I started working as a switching engineer for 6 months, but my teammates used to give me VPLS cases or complex MPLS cases, which I was interested in because I never learned MPLS. So in order to learn, I was always wanting to jump on something that I don't know. And eventually, after 6 months and the management getting fed up of me, they moved me to the routing team. And since then, I've been part of the routing team. I've been doing routing on all different Cisco platforms. So I think it all started with a network consultancy job and my preparation for CCNA, CCNP, CCIE helped all the way. And yeah, I think it all contributed, and it all makes sense now. I mean, if I go back and try connecting the dots, I think it all makes sense. I think it was the right move.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vinit. And you just mentioned like different changes that you have been having, and the truth is that there are many technologies and areas of interest today. And you also have been involved in data center, not only in routing and switching, in so many. But like, let's say like there are so many, Vinit. Do you have any particular area of interest? Do you have a favorite one?
No. Everything is favorite for me. Anything that I don't know is what drives me. I mean, let me put it this way. I mean, last 10 years I've been working mostly on routing technologies, but I have got my hands dirty with security. I've got my hands dirty with data center, ACI, storage. I've learned it, and I enjoy doing that because obviously, I mean, think about it. As a kid, I mean, if when you see something new, you're always excited to get your hands on it. Like even if it's a toy, right? To me, these new technologies were always like that, and I try not to get old mentally, but and keep myself as a kid and keep myself curious enough to learn new things. That's how I always go about it. So there's no specific area which I enjoy the most. Yeah, I enjoy doing what I do. And I think it's a key takeaway for anyone, whatever field they are in, they should love what they do. It shouldn't be the case that you're in a job which you're not enjoying. It will become a burden. And I haven't been in any job which I don't enjoy. If I feel I'm not having fun, I'll probably move on.
Okay, well, that's a very good advice for everyone, not only for people in technology. Well, Vinit, there's one very interesting question here. It comes from the audience, so I would like to share it in this moment.
Sure.
It says, like, as a technical leader in Cisco, how do you manage work and family?
Work and family. It's a good question. I don't really have an answer. I think my wife is very supportive of what I do. My family is very supportive of what I do. Before I even got married, my family used to always say I'm married to computers or machines than with my wife realized that after I became I got married. So I do try to spend a decent amount of time with my family, everyone. I never have a feeling in the day where I say I don't have time. I might be busy, sure, but I never tell anyone that I don't have time. You need to make time. Well, if I have to stay up late, which is pretty much every day for past 12, 13 years, my sleeping hours are very less, so I'm more productive that way. It's not a good advice to give to anyone. I wouldn't recommend to follow that, but it's to me it's always like okay, I have spent time with my family, I've spent time at work, but I wouldn't go to bed unless I've learned something. It's important for me, so I have to rebalance that, and then I would prefer giving away 1 hour of sleep than spending 1 hour learning, and that's how I usually do it. I love going on long walks. That's what I do, and get to spend time with most of my family members. If I'm in India, I go on walks with my mom and my brother. I play with my nephew and my niece. I do a lot of things. It's just that you just need to learn how to manage your time. What's important? Family is important. It's always going to be. And and my life to me makes more sense if I'm learning something. So I have to do that as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Vinit. And for any other questions, we're going to answer them. like during the live Q&A session. And you are talking about recommendations. And besides, I ask you the next question. I just like to let people know that it's true. Vinny is always running. Since I met him like a half decade ago, Vinny is extraordinary. He does tons of things, but the truth is, yeah, he's always running. And it's true, he works at late. And I guess I can say that because I go with him late as well. But you can make him manage. You just have a look at him and his smile is possible. So Vinit, talking about recommendations, you have different certifications, you have done many achievements. So do you have any advice for people who are seeking to develop a career in networking?
For people getting into networks or the networking domain, doesn't matter which area of interest. There are different technology domains that you can get into based on your interest. But I always recommend people going for route switch at the very beginning. At least get to know the fundamentals. Get your CCNA, get your CCNP. At least get to know how routing works, how switching works, because any network technology, be it your collaboration, be it your security, be it your ACI or data center environment, any of those technologies or domains will not function without routing and switching. They're always dependent on it. So I am a firm believer that you should at least do route switch and then decide your track where you want to go and go up till the CCI level. I mean, hit the max. Why not target the biggest certification rather than just going for basics? Target the biggest certification, set higher goals. Even if you don't achieve them in the first shot or second shot, no problem. Failures are okay. I think, well, failures teach us a lot. I'll tell you one thing. My CCI route switch was my first certification, my CCI certification. Well, CCNA was, but CCI route switch was the first that I did. And in CCI route switch, I passed in third attempt. In service provider was the second one. I passed in seventh attempt. You need to have perseverance. You need to be consistent. You need to be working hard. There will be days that you want to give up, trying to do those certifications, trying to gain the knowledge that you want to gain. But it's all right. It's all right to fail. It's all right to, not succeed. But don't give up. Just keep trying. It will pay you in a long run. And once you're comfortable with route switch, there are so many opportunities now, and not just from the network side, but also from the DevOps side. Now you have DevNet certifications available with Cisco, where you can, if you are interested in programming and automation, stuff like that, learn the basic fundamentals of route switch and move on to DevNet, and you can get your hands pretty deep into programming with Python and using Ansible, Chef, and different technologies or different programming languages. So it's a fun thing to do. Again, it's your choice what you want to do. But start with the fundamentals. Make your fundamentals strong enough. Spend as much time you can learning and developing your knowledge. I use a lot of simulation environments to learn new things wherever I can. I mean, if the technology is hardware dependent, obviously you need hardware. Me being in Cisco, I have the privilege of getting hands-on to most of the hardware. Again, there are restrictions, but I still able to get hands-on to most of the stuff. That helped me. But even being outside Cisco, you can still leverage the DevNet sandboxes and the dCloud. All of those resources are available, and you can learn a lot from those resources. So don't hold yourself back. Keep trying. Keep learning.
Okay, thank you, Vinit. So Now I'm going to make some questions about the publications and the books and all the material you have been working in. So the truth is that you have 3 books now, and you're working on new things coming on. So what has been your motivation to work on them, to publish them? Has it been something personal, professionally, a family promise, a love promise?
No, I don't have any promises. I started writing books, or I had interest in books only because of one primary reason. I gained knowledge on different areas, and I always believed that the knowledge that I gained doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to, I didn't develop those things. It was there before I started working on them. Somebody did develop them. And the knowledge that I gained over the period of time, it cannot just stay with me. Even the things that I have developed, they cannot just stay with me. It has to move on. It has to be passed on. And this writing books and doing some video series is one way of giving back. It's a way of sharing. And I specialize mostly in troubleshooting. How to troubleshoot complex problems. When there's a problem, it gives me kind of kick. All the things that I've learned over these years, I've tried to put that in the books that I've written. And I think it is worth taking a look at these books, because most of your network problems, even if it's related to BGP or Nexus or Lisp, are being covered in these books. So that has kept me motivated that I need to share, and I keep doing that. I don't have any promises. I can't stop. I just don't want to.
Good to know. Many people, they do have a reason why. Okay, so talking about the books, when you were preparing all the material and the content for your troubleshooting BGP book, what were the challenges, or what were the things that you found more interesting?
It was, so I spent 8 months writing the book, and I nearly wrote like 550 to 600 pages out of it. And in this whole journey, I think I've learned a lot. And also, I had to go through a lot of scenarios that I covered or faced when troubleshooting customer problems. So the whole troubleshooting scenario, or the troubleshooting BGP book, has like scenarios and situations. And the book not just demonstrates the solution, it also demonstrates how you create the problem and how you run into the problem. So I have demonstrated both the problems as well as the solution, which makes it a unique book for troubleshooting. If you read this book and read other troubleshooting books, I think you will see one primary difference is that not a lot of authors or others, no disrespect, no discredit, but I think not many people talk about problems. They talk about solutions, which is a good thing, but troubleshooting is definitely an art, and you need to learn how to define the problems. And in this book, I have tried defining the problems and then then talk about the solutions. I think that should always be the approach. Define the problem, define the solution, and then look deeply into it. I learned a lot with the cases, the scenarios. I wasn't just researching on the internal or the customer issues that I faced, but also the issues that we faced on different environments, different network designs, different platforms, like based on ISXC, ISXR, Nexus. So all of those different areas, I think I looked into it. I also did some researches on internet about certain network outages that were pretty big and had a pretty big impact. So all those scenarios helped me to get on top of the different topics that I covered in the book, and cover most of the scenarios. I think this book has a lot of scenarios that you will, I mean, once you start reading and once you start working on the production environment, you will realize, okay, yeah, I read about this problem in the book. So, yeah.
Okay, so just to complete this part of the session, my last question, Vinit, will be, what is the target audience for your troubleshooting BGP title?
So I would first recommend, a lot of authors have done an amazing job defining or writing the certification books. Go through them because they help you set the fundamentals straight for any technology that you're working. And I think it's amazing the amount of content every single author has written. It's really amazing. For getting into my book, I would say, I mean, the book covers fundamentals, intermediate, and advanced topics. It covers them all. But I would still recommend referring to one, like BGP Design Guide. I think it was from Russ White. You can read that, so you get to know the design aspects of BGP. And there are one or two more books related to BGP that you can get your fundamentals straight. If you are interested in learning about BGP from different operating systems and different features, functionalities perspective, you can also begin with my troubleshooting book. So we go about starting with the very basic, what BGP is all about, what are the different components that get involved, or the aspects like the autonomous systems, how the networks are designed, what are the different design use cases. We are talking about those as well. And if you are into CCNP and CCIE level of preparation, this is definitely a book for you, especially route switch and service provider environments, because you know, they are heavy on BGP. So this is definitely going to help you. But apart from the certifications, I would also say if you are working in a company and you are using BGP in your environment, go for this book. You will start seeing a lot of things related to the problems that you face in your day-to-day life, day-to-day job, and you will find those solutions here. You will learn about why certain things happen in the network, what are their impacts. So in both these scenarios, this book can be helpful. So it can be helpful for the beginners, for people who are preparing for certification, and can also be helpful for people who are working and on their job kind of scenarios. This book is definitely for them.
All right. Thank you so much, Vinit. So thank you for answering all these questions and letting us know more about you and your story and everything behind this book. So now it comes the time for you. It's Vinit's time. So now is the moment when you are going to share with us more about the best practices and approaches to solve common issues or troubleshoot issues in network.
Again, it's some of the basic things that I've put together to make sure that you know how you approach a problem in your network. But once we cover that, then we can talk about the questions that are asked, and we'll talk about them in detail. All right, let's move along. So, all right, so any network problem, and it can be, it's not specific to one domain like route switch or service provider or data center or collaboration, security. Any network problem has few basic requirements. And in order to quickly solve those problems, you need to focus on problem statement. And that's where most of us engineers spend the least amount of time on. And so the simple steps begin by getting the problem statement. So some of the users or maybe one of the users in your network environment might have faced a problem, and they might give you a problem statement like, hey, my network is not working, or my computer is not connected to the network. What are the other issues that they might have been facing? Even it can be related to voice, like my soft phone is not working, right? So get the problem statement. Now, getting the problem statement is, when you get a problem statement from other users, it's always open-ended. It's a wide problem statement. It's not narrowed down. So I always focus on redefining the problem. When I say redefine the problem, it doesn't mean that you change the problem statement. It can, but the problem might be something else. We don't know what the problem is. So you move along and try to narrow down the scope of the problem. And that's where I say redefine the problem, because that redefinition is going to tell you that, okay, this problem that the user reported or multiple users reported is not what exactly it is. It might be something else. And you need to focus on the specific areas of the problem rather than looking at the holistic picture. Well, and let me give you an example. So I'm recently working on a scenario where they have collaboration, like IP phones. They are connected to the access switches, and the access switches are connected to aggregation. The aggregation is connected to the WAN edges, where the WAN edges are basically your SD-WAN, Viptela. And then across the WAN, they have other sites, and the other sites have data center, right? And there they have Nexus, and the servers are after the Nexus, they have Fabric Path as well as ACI, and they have their servers or their the web servers or the application servers residing in the data center behind ACI. Now, problem is, if somebody says my phone is having a problem communicating with the or my laptop is having a problem communicating with the servers, application servers, or phone is having a problem communicating with the CUCM, you might wonder, okay, well, how do I troubleshoot? Is it a voice issue? Is it a network issue? Is it a WAN issue? What kind of problem it is? So redefine the problem. You might have to follow the steps to isolate the part of the network. Break down the whole big topology, whole big network into smaller chunks, and troubleshoot those smaller chunks step by step to narrow down the scope of the problem. That will really help you quickly isolate and then target that problem and focus on solving it. If you don't redefine or narrow down the scope, troubleshooting such a huge network environment can be complex, and it's not really going to help. And we'll be running into circles. There'll be multiple entities, like different networking teams or engineers teams, such as one for collaboration, one for security, one for data center, one for WAN, and you know, everyone will have their own perspective. It's not going to help. If you're troubleshooting a problem, make sure you narrow down the scope. Third thing, the third important aspect is identifying the source of the problem. When I say identifying the source of the problem, I also mean identifying the direction. So say for you have two network devices, A and B, and the problem is A cannot ping B, or when you ping from loopback of A to loopback of B, the ping doesn't work, right? Now, how do you say which one is the problematic, A or B? The best way to identify or solve this problem or identify what exactly the problem is happening, you might want to understand the direction of the problem. Is it the packet going from A to B? Like the packet, you're sending a ping packet, but it is not making it to B? Or is it the reply back from B to A? So unless you isolate the direction, it's not going to help, because you will be looking into the wrong device, wrong direction to troubleshoot a problem. It might so happen that, you know, the packet from A reaches B, but B doesn't know how to reach back to A, and there might be like multiple devices in the middle. So in that scenario, it is important that you identify the source of the problem or the direction of the problem. Then we talk about the trigger. Now, here's the thing. You might face a problem today, and it gets resolved in a couple of days, and you forget about it for, like, you don't see that problem happening again for 6 months, 8 months, a year or something like that, right? And that problem comes back again. But you did not focus on what triggered the problem the first time. So you wouldn't know, you will still start following the steps. And for troubleshooting, you will kind of reinvent the whole wheel, saying, okay, I ran the same problem last time I did these steps, it fixed the problem. You will do that, but the problem can reoccur again anytime soon or later in your environment. So for those situations, it's always important to identify the trigger. It may be a simple trigger as a config change, like you made a configuration change, and that triggered a whole lot of convergence or changes in the network, which caused your outage. So always get to the trigger, because the trigger will help you know if something that you did the first time also occurred the next time you run into the same problem. And correlate if it's the same problem or not. This also helps in the other way. Like, you might see same symptoms, but the problems might be different. So the trigger is definitely a key to troubleshooting similar problems or fixing the problems in a long run. Then recreate the problem. Now, this is something that we in Cisco TAC do. We try recreating some of the complex problems. Why? Because we want to make sure our customers do not run into those problems again. And even customers don't want to. So they will ask Cisco that, hey, guys, we ran into this problem, provide us with the root cause. Now, if you want to get to the root cause, there are too many variables involved. The network piece of it, design piece of it, then it may be something to do with the code or a defect, right? So you cannot get into the crux of the problem and fix it once and for all unless you recreate it. It may be a design problem, but it might be a design which may not be applicable for your network, right? It may be a good design, it's just not applicable. So the recreates are important. And I would say, I mean, even as you being on the customer side or even on the TAC side, I always recommend people that you have virtual environment. Like GNS3, you have Viral, and Viral again is coming up with its new version, so there's a lot going on there, and EVE. So you have a lot of tools available which are open source and which are Cisco proprietary, and you can leverage those, you can use those to recreate some of those problems, especially which are related to your route switch environments, which are related to your networks. You may not be able to perform or validate or test everything out, but most of it, yes, you can do it. I mean, you cannot test storage. You cannot test your whole ACI fabric, right? So there are a lot of things you cannot do. There are still a lot of things that you can do, which you can do in the virtual environment. Do it. Document everything. It is one of the critical pieces of a troubleshooting or being part of the network engineering team. And why I focus or stress a lot on the documentation part of it is, like I gave an example that you ran into a problem today and you ran into another problem or similar problem or same problem like 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line. You might want to not spend too much time to troubleshoot and fix that problem. If you know this is a common problem that has happened in the past, the documentation that you created the first time will always help resolving the problem next time in a less amount of time, in a quickly manner, with more efficiency, right? So you reduce the downtime, you reduce the outage hours or timeline when you do that. And so documentation is definitely very important and a key aspect of it. Now, there are different kinds of problems. One that can be fixed immediately with some config changes, some other network design changes. And there are options for workarounds wherein you can put in a patch. It can be a small of a patch like a link shutdown or configuring ACLs. So you can use any of these options, and you need to choose. You need a long-term fix or permanent fix, or you need a workaround. Workaround is to temporarily patch your network and work on then permanently fixing that problem. So always go for, to minimize the outage, go for a workaround. For long run, go for a fix. So that you reduce, you take care of the immediate requirements of your network by going for a workaround. But using the fix or implementing the fix, you can make sure that the same problem doesn't happen again. So these are the key principal steps anyone should be following when troubleshooting any problem. Doesn't matter route switch, doesn't matter data center, doesn't matter security. It applies to all. Now, I talked about that you can get an open-ended problem statement. When you get a problem statement, it's always in this scenario. Hey, cannot reach a website. Hey, my VPN is down. Or if you're running VXLAN, EVPN Fabric, or VXLAN regular, Flood and Learn Fabric, your host cannot communicate with each other. These are open-ended questions. These will not give you the details of the problem. So always make sure you do not keep yourself with just these problem statements. You need to be more specific. You need to drill down. It may be your VPN. Your VPN is not up. Your VPN is dropping packets, something like that. Cannot reach a website. That means it may not be a problem with your network. It may be a problem you being able to just reach, or your DNS server not being able to resolve the gateway. It may not be a problem with your internet connection, just your DNS server. And with your VXLAN Fabric, it can be a problem. You need to know if it's within the same VNI, within different VNIs. For all those who do not know, VNIs are similar to VLANs. It's just that it supports 16 million segments. So you divide the network into smaller segments. That's all it is. So again, depending on the problem, get to the details of it. Unless well, they always say devil is in the details, right? So it's important when we are troubleshooting a problem, get the details, get to the more specific. Ask questions. It is important. When did the problem occur? What time was the problem happening? Do you have a window, like a 1-hour window? Start by looking at the syslogs. Some network event happened across the devices. Get to know the topology, not the whole topology of your network, but the specific one. Which device did the problem happen? There might be multiple devices that might have got impacted, but where exactly did it happen? What was the trigger? If the trigger was on one specific device which impacted other devices. So it is important that you ask or figure out where did the problem initially get triggered. What exactly is the problem, right? What is the trigger? So all these questions are important. These questions, these when, where, and what, will help you get the answer why. Why did it all happen? That's how you can get to a root cause of any network problem that you're facing. So when, where, what equals why. That's a simple key or a mantra to troubleshoot any network problem. Now, while troubleshooting, you also need to know different tools. To me, I'm not a big fan of running debugs in the first go. Debugs to me is the last resort. I always begin by checking the basics. It may be hard to believe, but I do not trust anything or anyone unless I see the problem myself. It's a bad habit, you may say, but it has helped me and saved the day for our customers. So I always say, get the facts straight, get the details of the problem, see the problem yourself as much as you can do. If you cannot identify the problem, have an extra set of eyes, because sometimes you may ignore a very basic thing, and your peer or your colleague might be able to figure that out. So always have a second extra set of eyes and looking at the problem. I mean, if it's a packet forwarding issues, troubleshoot with ACLs. You can use those, right? You can also use on-box packet capture tools. And there are a lot of Cisco Live presentations showing or demonstrating all those tools. So it's important that you get some of these tools handy because they're easy to use and they can save a lot of time to identify the problem. Span is, for me, definitely not the last resort, but span does help identifying or troubleshooting packet forwarding issues, right? So it's important you know how to configure span and different types of span that are available, right? ER span, remote span, all of those features. It's good to keep your knowledge up on those things. Debugs, definitely last resort. If you cannot identify the problem with basic show commands or the tools that you're available, then okay, we might have to go with the debug. But always know the impact of the debugs. Is it going to create an impact? Like you are troubleshooting a BGP problem, but you run a debug IP packet. Well, debug IP packet is a very chatty debug. You might not want to run. There are different debugs that you can use and you can run to get it all moving along. So it's important that you use the right set of debugs. And if you're working with Cisco tag, always ask them what is the impact of the debug that the Cisco tag is enabling. And if required, if it's a debug which can impact services like cause a high CPU, take a change window, take a downtime, and make sure we are covered to not impact network services, right? So you can use any of these methods, but it's important to keep your tools handy. The other recommendation is start moving on to automation. And why I say this is because, first of all, it helps you save a lot of time. It helps you reduce the number of human errors that we can do. Humans, we are all humans, so obviously we are prone to making mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, we are not humans. So I'm glad. I mean, we are capable of making mistakes. So it's good. You learn a lot from your mistakes. So make sure you use automation as much as you can. Before you test it on production, test it on your virtual environment or your test environment, so that you don't go with automating something and make changes across your network, but just your test environment. So you know what changed, how it changes, and what is the impact, if there's any impact, and then go from there. You should also automate your log collection or taking your backup configurations. Like you can use even EEM, as simple as EEM script to take backups of your configuration, right? You can use that. You can use Python scripts. You can use different type of like even like Ansible to deploy features and configurations across your network, like multiple nodes at a single point of time. So all these tools can come in very handy. So make sure you're moving towards automation. The other reason of recommending you to move towards automation is also because I want you guys to also be making yourself future ready. The network industry is moving towards automation, AI, and a lot of these technologies where the human interaction is very less. So it's important to be relevant in the industry, right? And learning these key automation tools and technologies is going to be really helpful. So learn those. I would definitely recommend going for any of. I mean, you don't really have to just stick to Python. You can learn any of these automation tools. Yeah. So that's about it. These are the key things that I wanted to share with you guys with regards to troubleshooting any complex problem. Let me know if you have any questions.
So now is the moment to cover the questions from the audience. So what I have done is I have assigned them then to you on the Q&A panel. So if you can go one by one for all of them. Okay.
So the question is, how do you see automation in the networking field, even more when troubleshooting routing issues? Well, I find it very relevant. Why? Because with automation, you can not just troubleshoot one device, but you can troubleshoot or collect or access data from multiple devices. At the end of the day, it's all about data and how quickly you can fetch the data and analyze the data. So automation can definitely help you, or get data from multiple devices at a given point of time, and this can give you an additional value when you're troubleshooting complex problems. So make sure you leverage that. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but definitely it's very relevant. The next question is, for a network engineer, CCNA, RNS, what knowledge domain for success in CCNP data center? Well, route switch is still relevant. It doesn't matter which domain you are working on. Route switch is still going to be there for CCNP data center, right? So route switch, CCNA, still relevant. All you need to know when you're preparing for CCNP and CCIE, you will have to learn a lot of other things. Now with the new certification coming our way, we need to learn ACI, we need to learn storage, we need to learn about UCS servers, programmability, security. A lot of things are being covered. So route switch, sure, relevant, but it's not just that. It's more to that. So obviously having route switch CCNA is definitely going to help you quickly ramp up on the key networking features or sections of the CCNP course, but not going to help you completely or complete the whole CCNP data set. I've given CCNP switch and route 2 times and failed. That's okay. How do I cope up with change in exam pattern from Feb 23rd? Well, it's a good question. First of all, if you have failed, don't be disheartened. I would say you should be proud that you attempted. It's not a problem that you failed. It's okay to fail. And you can answer, I can answer you very easily on behalf of you that every attempt you gave, you gained more knowledge in the second attempt or you were more knowledgeable for the certification when you gave the second attempt than the first attempt, obviously. So that should be your focus, that you're learning. Your goal is not just doing certifications. Your goal is making or getting or earning more knowledge. That should be the goal. And certifications will always fall in place. Then you have, how do I cope with the change in the exam pattern? Now, obviously, the changes are coming our way, and there are a lot of things to learn. Now, if you're preparing for the new certification, I think it would make more sense to prepare for the new version rather than staying with the older version. I think you give yourself about 5 to 6 months and prepare on the new topics that are coming your way. There's no point spending your time on things which are already there, right? It's better, I mean, you're getting an opportunity, this is how I look at it, and you're getting an opportunity to learn something extra and more, which is more relevant to today's trend in route switch domain. And no matter, I mean, you're eventually going to earn your CCNP. It's just a matter of time. So why not give it another 5, 6 months, gain more knowledge, learn about new things. But you will have to stay consistent. You cannot, it's okay to take a break of 1 or 2 days, but don't take a break for too long. Make sure you stay consistent, you stay persistent, and perseverance is the key, like I said before. What does he think about moving focus from classical network engineer towards network software program engineer trend? To me, it's like one single person do not control the industry. Let me put it this way, right? The industry as a whole is moving towards software-defined networking or technology. And not keeping yourself up to that par or up to date is just going to impact or reduce your ability to stay relevant. So it is more important and more relevant to move into that direction. Get to know the networks. A lot of times I see this happening quite often, that when we are focusing on learning new stuff, we forget about and we reduce our focus on the networks, and we increase our focus on automation and programming and stuff like that. Well, it's not right. You need to have good fundamental knowledge of your networks, even if it's like security or data center or route switch, any of them. You need to have good amount of knowledge for each of them, rather than just focusing on Python and being able to collect data or being able to configure devices. That's just part of the job. You need to know also, because now, say for an example, you are using some external tools which are automating your network services, right? And when you run into a problem with any of your services, when your services are not working, what happens is you do not know how to look into the problem, or how to troubleshoot that problem, or how to collect data for that specific problem. So it's not going to help. It's important that you know the networks well before moving on to the software side of it. What knowledge level is the book written to target? CCNA, CCNP, CCIE. Well, CCNA is very basic, so it definitely covers that, but only small portion of it. CCNP, yes, and CCIE, yes. It covers pretty much all scenarios, and a lot of the data is already there, what you will see in CCNP and CCIE level for BGP. And along with network simulators, what tools and monitoring tools is Vinit using? Oh, good question. I use a lot of, I rely less on monitoring tools. Well, when I say rely less, that doesn't mean I don't use them. Off lately, I'm getting heavy on telemetry. It's very interesting and faster statistics and data collection. I rely on that. I also use some of the other tools such as, well, those are open source, like Kibana and where you can collect data and analyze the data. You can use other troubleshooting tools, like I mentioned before, Ethernalyzer, EPC. On most of Cisco platforms now we have ELAM, so you don't really have to know all of those, but yeah, I use some of these tools to troubleshoot any problem. The monitoring tools or the tools which show you very nice graphs, they only help you know that something happened, but they don't help you all the time get to know what happened. So you need to know other platform-related tools to troubleshoot those. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, these are some of the tools. And then when I talk about some monitoring tools like Kibana and other open source, like for BGP, there's Open BMP, BGP Monitoring Protocol. So you can search for Open BMP, and I even presented at Cisco Live last year. So take a look at that, and you can leverage that to get notifications or updates or of any events happening with regards to BGP across your network. So it's a very handy tool. So you can use those, yeah. But yeah, I look out for a lot of open source tools which I can use to play around in my virtual environment or lab environment. And but I for troubleshooting and quickly solving problems or understanding what the problem is, I use the on-box tools a lot. How do you prioritize troubleshooting a network outage if there were multiple incidents happening at the same time, but there's only one engineer source available to troubleshoot? Good question, and I think it is a very relevant question. Now, this is where most of the people see the problem and waste their time. Why? Because when you're troubleshooting multiple incidents, you are all over the place. So you need to take a stand and prioritize which problem you want to troubleshoot, which is having the most impact. I always, if there are 5 different problems, I always go and begin by solving or focusing on one problem at a time. We'll focus on one problem, fix that, move on to the other. There's no point like looking at 5 different problems at the same time. You cannot. and you will be confused. You won't be able to correlate things easily. If you solve one problem or you focus on one problem, it might most likely be that some of the other problems that you're facing might eventually go away. So focus on one problem at a time and prioritize which one has a bigger impact. Based on that, I think you should be good to troubleshoot any of the complex network problems. Ethernalyzers, can you give some details? So Ethernalyzer is a packet capture tool which is used to collect or capture control plane data or packets coming to the CPU on the Nexus switch. There are examples covered in my Troubleshooting BGP book on Ethernalyzer and other tools as well on how to collect the data or how to use the Ethernalyzer tool. So you can refer to that. Alternatively, what I can do is I can also try sharing an example in my YouTube channel. I recently started sharing some stuff related to troubleshooting and networks and some new features. There are not many videos, just 3 of them yet, but I'll try creating more often and maybe show an example of Ethernalyzer there. Do you use GNS3 or VIRL? So it's not VIRAL, it's VIRL, which is Virtual Internet Routing Lab. I believe that's how they call it. I use GNS3. Well, it depends most of the time. Most of the times I use GNS3 because I have it set up for a very long time now. But I have used VIRL and I'm looking forward for VIRL 2.0. That looks promising. So there are a lot of cool features that are being developed as part of the new VIRL 2.0. And but mostly GNS3. But it shouldn't matter. You can use GNS3, EVE, or VIRL, any of them to get things done. I prefer VIRL because there are a lot of because first thing it's open source, so obviously there are a lot of updates happening. There are a lot of cool features that are coming along and features coming very quickly, right? And it also has a bunch of APIs that you can use to automate tasks in GNS3. So I use GNS3, but you can use VIRL as well. I wouldn't go for comparison. I mean, it's again individual choice. Okay, so next question is, what kind of automation significant in network operations as far as I know? I've seen automation more into config management. Yes, very true. We usually do that. Example, what are the ways to automate the failover when BGP on R1 is down to BGP in R2? Well, for such scenarios, you don't really need automation. So let me put it this way. When you are into automation and you're trying to apply automation techniques, we need to understand, is the automation really going to make an impact? Is it really going to help? And if it is going to help, it's only then I would go for automation. I mean, it's the same case with machine learning and AI. I mean, if somebody talks about it, you might notice that people might come up with ideas. I can apply machine learning in XYZ scenario. Well, the question is machine learning going to help solve any of the problems that you're trying to solve? Or are there any tools already present which can solve that problem? So this is something I learned the hard way, but I would say analyze if you really want to, or is it really needed to apply automation. Now, for log collection, automation is definitely relevant. Why? Because you can use automation tools in case of like if you want to collect logs every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, or maybe every 30 minutes. In those scenarios, what can you do? You can leverage those automation tools. But, well, how the failover will happen from R1 to R2, that's your plain vanilla configuration. You can easily achieve that. You don't really need an automation tool for that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vinit, for helping to cover most of the questions. There are only a few left. Due to the time, we will cover the rest of them on the community at the event page, just where you register. here you can find some resources. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you who are the lucky winners for today's giveaway. So the first one goes to Ernesto Montiel, which is actually Mexico. So Ernesto, someone from the Cisco community will contact you via email to set up the prize. And the other one goes to, hold on, Trevor Chandler. So it's amazing because Trevor has been saying that he wants to win so badly. So Trevor and Ernesto, we will contact you from the Cisco community to give you the book, send it out to the place you indicate us. And thank you so much for joining today. Vinit, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. It's amazing everything that you know and you have done. So we really appreciate that. And another thing that I would like to share with you is that please help us to complete this survey. It helps us to know how we are doing and how can we improve, and also what kind of topics or authors you would like to see in upcoming sessions. And I have a good news for you. So we have a good partnership with Cisco Press, so they will give in a 45% discount for any single material that you're looking for at their pages, including Vinit's book. So you can see the code that they're giving for all of you who complete this survey and who have attended to this event. So Vinit, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
And I hope and I wish all of you have a great day, and we see you luckily in the next session. Thanks, Vinit.
Hey, thank you. See ya, guys.